This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. If you'd like to help keep the lights on, you can find us on patreon.com/ohtheurbanity. We've all kind of blocked it out of our minds, but the COVID pandemic was absolutely devastating for transit ridership. And even now, 4 years since 2020, we haven't fully recovered. But some cities and systems actually fared much worse, while others have rebounded almost to their pre-pandemic numbers. In this video, we're going to take a look at the fall and recovery of rapid transit systems in the US and Canada to see who made it through the best and the worst. On the eve of COVID, the 12 North American subway or metro systems that we're looking at here saw a total of 16 million riders a day. More than half of those were on the New York subway, which carried 9 million daily. Next we had the Toronto subway and Montreal metro, seeing about 1.5 million each. After that were the Washington Metro and Chicago L, at about 750,000 passengers. The Vancouver SkyTrain and Boston Subway both saw about 500,000. That's not including the Green Line in Boston, which is classified as light rail in our data. San Francisco's BART carried north of 400,000. The PATH system between New Jersey and New York carried about 300,000. Rounding out our list, we have Atlanta, Los Angeles, and Miami. The Philadelphia subway is also a major system, but it has missing data during COVID, so we're not including it in this video. And sorry to people in Seattle or Calgary, but no light rail in this one. Maybe in a follow-up video. You probably remember what happened next.
Across Canada, empty streets, closed businesses amidst a deepening lockdown.
Public life cratered and so did transit ridership. Except that in addition to a general reduction in travel, people were extra cautious about transit in particular, because it involved being in an indoor space with other people. Good for bikes, bad for trains and buses. The 16 million daily rapid transit trips at the end of 2019 fell dramatically to under 2 million in the second quarter of 2020, corresponding to late spring and early summer. But some systems were hit much harder than others. The biggest drops were seen in Washington, D.C., San Francisco, and New Jersey's PATH, which fell to just 7 or 8% of their pre-pandemic ridership, probably due to high rates of remote work among federal workers and tech workers, and the commuter-focused service of New Jersey's PATH. Other big systems fared a little bit better. Toronto, New York, and Boston were around 12% ridership, but 4 systems were much more resilient during the depths of COVID. 2 of these, Miami and Atlanta, only fell to 25% ridership. Still objectively a big drop, but a less drastic one that can probably be explained by Florida and the South famously having laxer rules and cultural attitudes around COVID. Vancouver actually had similar ridership retention though, and while British Columbia was less strict on COVID rules than other Canadian provinces at the time, it didn't seem to be on the same level as Florida. Why did Vancouver keep its ridership relatively well? Here are some possibilities. First, it retained transit service in the depths of the pandemic much better than almost any other city in North America. And while that didn't apply just to the SkyTrain, the fact that the train is automated avoids the financial pressures that cut service, as well as the operator shortages that plagued a lot of systems. Second, the SkyTrain is less radial than a lot of other systems, so it's useful not just for commuting downtown but also going between suburbs, with destinations like malls and hospitals. And third, this might not be big enough to change the ridership numbers, but you can see how someone who's more vulnerable to COVID might prefer a mostly open-air system, where frequencies are high enough that you can just skip a busy train and wait for the next one. The system that retained ridership the best in the depths of COVID wasn't actually Vancouver, Miami, or Atlanta though. It was the LA subway, which retained 39% of its ridership. This wasn't even specific to the subway. LA's light rail and buses retained a similar amount. This one is more of a puzzle. California had stricter COVID measures than Florida, and Los Angeles didn't retain transit service as well as Vancouver did. We do know that transit commuters in LA tend to be lower income relative to drivers, in a way that isn't so much the case for other major US cities like Chicago or New York. It's possible that the city retained ridership because so many of its riders are unable to afford other options or work from home. If anyone has more insight on LA, let us know in the comments. After the very depths of COVID, transit ridership initially bounced back in a very strong way, doubling from 2 million a day in the second quarter to 4 million a day in the third quarter, which corresponds to late summer. After that, though, the recovery was more gradual. The beginning of 2021 saw 4.5 million daily rides. That grew to 7.5 million a year later, just under 10 million a year after that. And finally, at the beginning of 2024, we're at 10.3 million, which is 2/3 of pre-pandemic ridership. Again, though, there's a lot of variation. The number one most recovered system at this point is Vancouver, at 84% of pre-pandemic ridership. On top of the frequent service and less downtown-focused system, Vancouver has seen pretty good recovery in downtown activity, as well as population growth and continued transit-oriented development through the pandemic that's been driving ridership. The second best recovered system is Miami, which even now has one of the strongest downtowns. In third place is the Montreal Metro at 73% recovery. New York, Toronto, DC, and Path are all between 60 and 70% ridership. Boston and Chicago have struggled more, only reaching about half of their pre-pandemic ridership. Both cities have had major problems with operations and service coming out of COVID, from the slow zones and maintenance problems in Boston to the ghost trains in Chicago. If these cities had a more normal recovery like Toronto or DC, they'd have 50 to 100,000 more daily riders. Then we have Atlanta and Los Angeles, which performed relatively well in 2020, but haven't really recovered like the others since then. And finally, we have San Francisco's BART, which has barely gotten back to 1/3 of its pre-pandemic ridership. The difference between Vancouver and San Francisco is really stark. So what's going on with San Francisco? Well, it's more commuter-focused than most other metro systems, even compared to its cousin, the DC Metro, in a city that has high rates of working from home. Even beyond commuting, San Francisco has seen a slower return to downtown activity than most other US cities. We wanted to make this video for two reasons. First, to give some context on transit ridership numbers. If you hear about Canadian systems outperforming often longer US ones on ridership, in our videos or elsewhere, this is a general phenomenon, but it's also worsened after COVID. A lot of systems like Boston, Chicago, and San Francisco used to carry double or even triple what they currently do, and they have the potential to recover back to those numbers at some point in the future. Second, it's useful to think about building transit systems to be resilient. Automated trains in places like Vancouver, Honolulu, Montreal, and in the future Toronto are able to maintain service better through operator shortages and funding problems, and that's a really big deal. And while downtown trips will always be an important part of transit, systems that aren't entirely downtown focused seem to be more resilient to changing patterns in mobility. Thanks for watching through to the end of the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and a special thanks to our supporters on Patreon.